What's up, guys? We are back with another Marvel Legends review, jumping into the Fantastic Four Retro Wave. I'm not convinced that I'm going to review every single one of these figures, but there are a couple in particular that I simply have to look at. And of course, the first one here is Psycho Man, because, I mean, look at this guy. This has Jack Kirby written all over it, and I think we've got a very strong contender for like a top 10 style figure for Marvel Legends this year, because everything about this guy speaks to me. So I'm really excited to take a look at this one. He, of course, comes on the card back that we've seen previously with Doctor Doom in that sort of one-off release that is built upon the vintage Toy Biz retro style packaging. The only thing that's different is that there's no like hollow foil on the front this time. So you've got that shot of the Fantastic Four rocketing through space, and you've got Psycho Man there in the big window, and then the back of the package has some artwork similar to the Toy Biz figures from what, 25 years ago, with a little bit of a write-up on Psycho Man, as well as a full wave cross-sell on the back. So lots of nostalgia here as usual. Well, let's do it. Let's pull this guy out and take a look. And here we go. Out of the package, our Psycho Man figure. Something that I really didn't expect we were ever going to get, but I feel like every time this kind of figure comes out, it just shows us that we're going to get pretty much everything eventually anyway. So I'm just sort of taking it all in, and this is one that, for a number of reasons, I'm really excited for. He and, of course, the High Evolutionary in this retro wave are two figures in particular that I'm very, very interested in from like a construction standpoint, just from a toy perspective. But I also really like this guy. He's a really weird design, and he's not the most dynamic kind of character, certainly not going to lend itself to being the most dynamic figure, but he does one thing really, really well that just is all I need him to do. So let's get started, see what he can do, see how he moves around. He is definitely limited in some ways, but at the same time, he is surprisingly well articulated in a few ways that I wasn't expecting for such like a barrel-chested, thick kind of character. The first place is the head. So it's all one piece, the head and neck, because he's got kind of like this armor piece that his head sits in. So he can swivel all the way around. You can get him to look down a little bit, up a little bit, and good tilt side to side. Of course, he can fully rotate as well, but it just moves really nicely. We've got arms that go out at the shoulders. They, of course, rotate all the way around. You've got your bicep swivel. We've got pinless double elbows, but they really only go about 90 degrees, roughly. Maybe a little bit more than 90. And then you've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. No diaphragm cut, but he has a ball peg waist, which does work really nicely. So he goes back a little bit, but he goes forward really, really well. Again, for this kind of suit and construction, I wasn't expecting him to do much. Tilt side to side really nicely. I mean, that's really far. And then you've got full rotation there. The legs are really where he's going to be a little limited, just because, I mean, look at them. They're weird. So they kick out about that far. They only kick forward about that far because he's got this very thick rubbery skirt piece. They do kick backwards slightly. You do have a thigh cut. You know, it's inside of that cage that he has. And then we've got double jointed knees, but they really only go back about that far before everything starts to sort of get like a traffic jam going on back there. And then you've got a rocker, and you've got hinges down at those ankles. He looks like he has a boot cut or a shin swivel, but for the life of me, I can't make them work. So if they do, mine are super, super locked down, and I've even heated him, and he still didn't want to move. It looks like it's there, but it also could just be the sculpt for those rings. He doesn't exactly need it, but I had to try. So he is, I mean, really well articulated for the kind of character he is. I don't think, again, that people need him to be dynamic, and frankly, you really don't. He's not that kind of character, but he looks imposing, and he's able to get into some really nice, kind of stoic, evil-looking sort of vanilla poses very, very easily. And in that same way, the real focus of this figure is, at least for me, is the aesthetics and just him as a character in plastic. And Hasbro's done a couple of things here that I just really like. He has surprisingly little paint on him. Like, there's really not a lot. It's mostly cast plastic, and a lot of that comes down to how they've done the rings, you know, his ridiculous outfit from the waist down. It's all just attached separate pieces, but they've gone pretty crazy with a very candy-coated metallic pearlescent plastic for the head, for the clavicle area, for the arms, and then for the rings as well, with a slightly more matte finish on those. And then the rest of him is stark white, except for, of course, the face. And I really like it. I mean, the idea behind this character, I mean, is that he's, kind of in this suit, and depending on how you want to interpret it, this is either the regular version or the one that's in the big suit, because he controls a different suit since he's from the Microverse or whatever he was. And I mean, I just really like this interpretation because, again, this is a very, very Kirby-inspired character. This is very much a Kirby creation, and that type of thing brought into plastic. This is one of those instances where it makes me want a ton of that kind of stuff, like Jack Kirby Eternals or stuff like that. I would really love to see that in plastic, and this kind of tells me what we would get if they did stuff like that. And I mean, there's not a great deal to him. A lot of his body is very flat, for lack of a better word, especially on the torso, and on the arms you do have some little detail, and like even the piping on this green is really nicely done. He's really busy from the waist down though, and it's in this super weird way because there's no function here. This is all form over function, really, but it works really well as a toy. Again, the super white pants that he has with all of this green piping all over it. It's weird. It's definitely different. It's again a very Kirby looking thing, but it works really well as a figure. I don't think I ever say this word. It's a very toyetic design. This very much lends itself to just being a figure, and it works really nicely, especially when you take into consideration the fact that he doesn't really need to do anything except stand on your shelf. Granted, you can get him to do stuff, but he doesn't really need to. That's not exactly what this guy was known for. And then, of course, you have the head sculpt up top, which does have a little bit of paint. It's not a lot, but we've got more of that pearlescent metallic plastic, this time done up in a really gold color with white pupilless eyes. You've got that green paint on there for the symbol on the top, and then a little bit for those black lines. But it's just nicely done. It's very clean. It's very crisp. I'm overall happy with this guy from a looks perspective, from head to toe. There's not really anything I would want to change about him, especially when it comes to the finishes, the different kinds of plastic, the different materials, and the colors. They pop. They're very vibrant, and I really, really like this finish, especially on the torso area. I want to see a lot more of this kind of stuff in Legends. And then as far as accessories goes, this is the one area where I wish he had a little bit more, but he has the one thing that truly matters. We get our control box. And this is, of course, the thing that I've mentioned that he does really well. And it's exactly what I need him to do. This is how he's going to be on my shelf probably forever. I don't see any reason to have him posed any differently for me personally. So he holds his control box, and of course Psycho Man's abilities, his techniques are to instill fear, doubt, and hate in his victims, and uses this thing to ratchet up those emotions to control people. And it's a goofy weapon, it's a goofy accessory, but it works really well. And he has a hand specifically sculpted for this to be able to hold it like he's coming down with the Ten Commandments or something like that. But I really like this thing. There's not a lot of paint on it outside of the tampo work for the lettering, but it looks good. It's got a nice little bit of detail all over it, so of course it's, some sort of techno thing. And he doesn't have a lot of stuff. He doesn't have any extra hands. He doesn't have any energy effects or anything, but he has the one thing that truly matters, and I'm glad it's done the way it's done. He's able to hold it really well to get him into some nice positions with it, and it looks good. So he has what I want for him, and there's not much more I could really ask, especially when he's able to do the one thing that I want him to do. Just stand there and hold this and look imposing. So yeah, overall, he's great. That's pretty much what it comes down to. I absolutely love this guy. It's a weird, different, maybe slightly off the beaten path character. I'm not sure if he is or isn't, unknown really, but he is one that I did not expect to get, and he's one that I'm very happy that we finally have in our collections. I'd be very surprised if he does not appear on my top 10 list for Legends this year, because when I got him out of that box, I really couldn't put him down. I think Hasbro did a fantastic job translating this design and this aesthetic into plastic. He doesn't come with a lot of stuff, but everything about him is substantive, from his design to the plastics used to the finishes, and then of course having that one major accessory that ultimately is all I really needed, coupled with a hand that is able to hold it perfectly. So I'm really happy with this guy, and he's without a doubt the high point of the Fantastic Four retro wave. So that's going to do it for this look at the Marvel Legends Psycho Man. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.